parties in the matter of Acree versus Jones. Step forward, please.
28-year-old Karen Acree is suing her ex-boyfriend, Donald Jones, for rent and utility bills. Donald is countersuing for rent, lost wages, and a loan to get her stereo out of pawn.
Miss Acree, according to your complaint, you and Mr. Jones lived together for a period of time in a lease that you both signed.
That is correct.
There was a problem with an altercation that the two of you had. He was put out of the apartment. You claim he owes you some bills, some rent and utilities. Mr. Jones says that he paid up while he was living there. Once he was put out of the apartment, he has no intention of paying for rent and utilities. And he claims that you actually owe him money for some loans and assorted stuff. So he has a counterclaim. When did you move in together?
In July of 2004.
What was the rent on the apartment?
$650.
Who moved in?
Both of us did.
Anybody else?
My daughter.
So the three of you moved in?
Yes, she's 5 years old.
You get child support for her?
Barely, but yes.
What was the financial arrangements you had with Mr. Jones?
He signed the lease as well, and he would be paying half of the rent.
Was that your arrangement, Mr. Jones?
Correct.
Where were you working at the time, Miss Acree?
I was in and out of jobs. I was working through temp.
What about you, Mr. Jones?
I worked for County Road and Bridge Department, 10, 12-hour days.
Steadily?
Yes.
How much were you earning, Mr. Jones?
$1,200 a month.
And how did you put your money into the rent?
Every 2 weeks I cashed my check, and since she was home during the day, she would take care of the bills. I'd just give her money.
Is that right?
That is not correct, Your Honor.
Well, tell me how you were paying your bills if you weren't working full-time.
I was paying it through TANF, which is temporary aid for families in need, and that's what I get each month. And then
You get
I would
welfare?
get, yes.
Well, that's an easier term. Let me ask you this question, Miss Acree. Why in the world would I award you any money from Mr. Jones when the state was paying your rent?
Because he did not pay his share like he was supposed to.
That's not correct.
Okay. What happened in October?
October, he got physically violent with me, threw a cell phone at me, bruised me. I had to call 911 because this happened in front of my child.
So that was in October?
Yes.
October what?
October 10th.
You filed for protective order?
Yes.
What happened with that protective order?
That got dropped.
By whom? What do you mean
By
got
me.
dropped? You dropped it?
Yes.
Why?
Because of the fact that after he had been in jail, he had to go to domestic violence classes, and we went to court and everything. I told him he could come back into the house, yes.
Did he come back into
Yes.
the house?
In December.
For how long?
Until I got evicted in February.
Did you stay with her in January and February?
No, I didn't. I moved out of our apartment on the 10th to my parents' house. And
10th of October?
Correct.
Were you put out by the police, Mr. Jones?
I was in apartment
How long did you stay in jail in October?
2 days.
Did you move back with Miss Acree?
No, ma'am.
You did not?
No, I live with my parents. And in November, she contacted my parents' church trying to borrow money to pay her rent, in which case my dad was contacted by the church because my name was on the lease as well.
Are you asked for some money?
From a church, yes, I did.
Why?
Because of the fact I did not have enough money to pay the
Why
whole
did you
rent.
get a job?
I did get a job.
Well, if you had a job and you're getting welfare and you're getting some child support, what did you have to ask for charity for?
Because at the time I did not have a steady job, but I did.
So you didn't
after
have a
that.
job. Where are you working now?
Now I'm working at a gas station 40 hours a week.
When did you start this job?
A month ago.
And the previous job?
I had for a couple months until he got me fired from it.
Miss Acree, how long had you been receiving welfare to pay your rent?
For about a year.
Before you met him?
Yes.
So it wasn't because of him that you were at school to learn what?
Accounting.
And?
And I have a degree.
You have a degree in accounting and you're working at a gas station.
Yeah, I
Something
know.
doesn't balance out here, Miss Acree. Why don't you get a job with H&R Block instead of getting a job at a gas station?
Because I'd rather not work at H&R Block, but that's
You'd rather work at a gas station. So what did you go to school for accounting for?
because I wanted a degree.
Okay, let me hear about your counterclaim.
Okay, first off, not only did I pay her bills and her rent, she had a car payment that I was helping her out with, cell phone bills also. She worked for a month and a half through the 6 months we were together at that apartment. She also asked me for a loan of $150 to get a car stereo out of the pawn shop.
Which
so I
is
gave
not
her,
true.
So I gave her the $150.
When did you do that?
Do you have the month on that?
No. Don't ask her.
I don't know. I don't have that.
Your Honor, I have the proof right here that it was not $150 and he went with me to the pawn shop. It was $54.
What month?
In March.
March of what year?
This year, 2005.
What were you doing going to the pawn shop with him in March to get your stereo out of hock?
I got it out this year because of the fact that I had to put it in there to make...
If you're not together with him, why do you call him to help you get something out of a pawn shop?
He was calling me, actually, and he asked me, he told me he didn't want me to lose it. And I said, okay, well, it's $54 to get it out. And he said, okay, let's go get it out.
How did you come to go with her to the pawn shop in March?
I didn't go through the pawn shop. She asked me to borrow money, as she has multiple times.
Then you shouldn't lend her money, Mr. Jones.
I'm a slow learner on that one, I guess.
Ms. Acree, I don't believe he owes you a dime for rent. I believe that he worked. You did not. I believe that he contributed to the household. You did not. Now, if you had a job all that time...
But I did. I worked at Kodak, and I worked...
Show me proof that you worked anywhere. Show me proof. You're not entitled to any money, Ms. Acree. And Mr. Jones, have you learned your lesson?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Goodbye. Your counterclaim's dismissed.
Parties are excused and they step out.
I didn't think it was fair.
Acree versus Jones. The accounting degree that couldn't count the red flags. Have you ever sat on your couch at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, clutching a lukewarm mug of coffee, and wondered exactly where your life went wrong? I did precisely that yesterday, and the answer came screaming at me through the screen in the form of Acree versus Jones. It's that classic, vintage flavor of daytime court TV where the legal arguments are thin, but the audacious all-seen the he said, she said routine. But this particular episode felt like watching two people try to assemble IKEA furniture in the middle of a hurricane, while one of them claims they don't even believe in Allen wrenches. Why do we subject ourselves to this? Perhaps it's because seeing Karen and Donald's absolute train wreck of a cohabitation makes our own questionable life choices feel like a TED Talk on efficiency. This episode wasn't just a legal proceeding, it was a masterclass in the delusional arts. On one side, we have Karen, a woman who possesses an accounting degree but treats her own bank account like a game of Scrabble where all the vowels are missing. On the other, we have Donald, a man who seems to have attended the school of hard knocks, but forgot to graduate from the Don't Give Your Ex Money for a Stereo seminar. The stakes? A few $100s in rent and a pawn stereo. The real cost? Their dignity and about 20 minutes of my life that I will never get back, yet I spent every second of it leaning closer to the screen. It's the kind of episode that makes you want to reach through the pixels and hand them a calculator, or perhaps a map to the nearest reality check station. What makes this specific case a chef's kiss moment of television is the sheer, unadulterated confidence Karen displays while explaining why her accounting degree actions. It is a fever dream of mid-2000s fashion, questionable life decisions, and the kind of domestic drama that makes you want to call your mother and apologize for that one time you forgot to do the dishes. We're talking about a case where the plaintiff is suing for rent money that the government essentially already paid for, and a defendant who is countersuing for a loan that looks suspiciously like a please leave me alone payment. It's messy, it's loud, and it's the exact reason why I keep my remote glued to my hand. Let's dive into why this specific mess is the perfect specimen of domestic chaos, where the only thing truly accounted for was the sheer volume of excuses piled up on the plaintiff's side of the bench. Prepare yourself, because this is going to be a bumpy ride through the land of lost receipts and found audacities. The saga begins with what I like to call the cohabitation contract of convenience, a period back in July 2004 when Karen and Donald decided that sharing a $650 a month apartment was a brilliant idea despite their financial situations being as stable as a Jenga tower in a gale. Karen brought along her 5-year-old daughter and a steady stream of welfare checks, while Donald was the designated adult with a job, logging grueling 12-hour shifts at the county road department just to make ends meet. Their she said logic, where Donald claimed he was handing over his hard-earned cash for Karen to manage while she stayed home, whereas Karen insisted she was the sole financier of their domestic bliss through the magic of TNF assistance. It's the kind of start that screams happily ever after if your version of happiness involves arguing over whether the rent was paid by the state or the man digging ditches in the heat. As we transition into the autumn of our discontent, the script takes a dark and chaotic turn in October. We're talking about an alleged cell phone hurling incident that landed Donald in the Gray Bar Hotel for a couple of days and led to a protective order that Karen dropped faster than a hot potato because she figured everything was okay after he attended a few domestic violence classes. The logic here is truly Olympic level. Apparently, a seminar is the magic wand that erases a 911 call and a bruised face in the presence of a child. This period was marked by Donald moving out to his parents' house while Karen started cold calling his parents' church for rent money, like she was running a high-stakes telethon. The sheer audacity of asking your ex's father's place of worship to pay your bills because you didn't have enough money, while refusing to find steady work, is a level of chutzpah that deserves its own reality spin-off. We then move toward that she actually holds a degree in accounting but chooses to spend her 40 hours a week at a gas station because she would rather not work at H&R Block. This revelation is where the show really hits its stride, as the judge stares at her with a mix of pity and professional offense that mirrors the audience's own confusion. Finally, we reach the pawn shop finale, the third and most baffling act of this tragicomedy. It's March 2005, months after they've supposedly split, yet they are taking road trips to the local pawn shop together. Karen claims she needed exactly $54 to rescue her car stereo, which she pawned to make a car payment, while Donald insists it was a $150 loan. The image of these two, who clearly shouldn't be in the same zip code, let alone the same vehicle, haggling over a stereo at a pawn shop, is the pinnacle of this episode's absurdity. It all culminates in front of a judge who is visibly losing her faith in the concept of personal responsibility as she realizes Karen has been on welfare for a year, even before she met Donald, and has no intention of using her education to improve her lot. The curtain falls with both their claims being unceremoniously tossed into the legal trash bin, leaving Donald with a lesson learned and Karen with a gas station shift, while we are left wondering how involving a 5-year-old and a state-funded apartment. Let's talk about the absolute enigma that is Karen Acri, the woman who single-handedly turned the prestigious field of accounting into a punchline for a Tuesday afternoon television audience. If there were an award for the most confusing character arc in the history of daytime legal theater, Karen would be clutching that trophy while simultaneously explaining why she can't afford the cab ride to the ceremony. Analyzing Karen is like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube where all the stickers have been peeled off and replaced with receipts from a gas station convenience store. She walks into the courtroom with the defensive posture of someone who has spent a significant portion of their adult life being told no and has developed a specialized psychological armor to deflect any form of accountability. The most jarring element of her persona is this accounting degree revelation. In the hierarchy of reasons why this case makes no sense, the fact that a woman with a specialized degree in financial management is currently pulling 40-hour shifts at a gas station while relying on welfare and the charity of her ex-boyfriend's parents' church is the absolute peak. It is a cinematic irony so thick you could cut it with a dull kitchen knife. When the judge suggests she work for H&R Block, a place that literally hires people during tax season based on basic compensation, I'd rather not. We witness the birth of 1,000 internet memes. It's not just a career choice, it's a lifestyle manifesto. Karen represents the victim of circumstance archetype, yet her own testimony reveals a series of choices that are so bafflingly counterproductive they border on the performance art level of self-sabotage. She uses her 5-year-old daughter as a narrative shield, mentioning her early on to garner sympathy, yet the chemistry between her and the facts suggests she is far more interested in the $650 rent than the stability of her child's environment. Her facial expressions are a masterclass in the great denial. Watch her eyes when Donald mentions giving her money every 2 weeks. There is a split-second flicker of recognition, a micro-expression of, oh right, that happened, before she snaps back into her rehearsed role of the neglected partner. She isn't just the victim of the editing team, she is the architect of her own disaster, and yet she plays the role with such unearned confidence that you almost want to believe her, right up until she mentions the pawned car stereo. And then there's Donald Jones, the man who is essentially the human equivalent of a loading icon. Donald is the workhorse martyr, the guy who digs ditches for 12 hours a day and then comes home free but doesn't want to use it. Donald's tragedy isn't that he lost money, It's that he has the emotional boundary-setting skills of a wet paper towel. He is the team carrier in the financial sense. He was the one providing the $1,200 a month that actually kept the lights on, but he is also the guy who gets back together with the woman who put him in jail after 2 days of domestic violence classes. His own admission that he is a slow learner is perhaps the most honest statement ever uttered in the history of the show. You can see the wear and tear of those road department shifts in his posture, a physical manifestation of a man who is exhausted by his own choices but doesn't quite know how to stop making them. The chemistry between Karen and Donald is a toxic cocktail of dependency and resentment. They are like two tectonic plates that only know how to create earthquakes whenever they touch. Even in March 2005, months after the supposed final blowout, they are still going to the pawn shop together.
Why?
Because Karen knows how to play the I'm going to lose my car/stereo/sanity card, and Donald, in his infinite slow learner wisdom, keeps showing up with the $54 or $150, depending on who's lying. This isn't love. It's a symbiotic relationship based on a mutual addiction to chaos. Donald needs to feel like the provider's fact that her accounting degree hasn't magically turned her life into a spreadsheet of success. Their interactions in the courtroom are a series of sharp jabs and defensive parries that reveal years of built-up frustration. When Donald says, "She worked for a month and a half through the 6 months we were together," and Karen snaps back with "not true," without offering a single shred of evidence, we see the dynamic in a nutshell. One person providing the reality and the other providing the noise. The Bonté Dao Dain, or director's hand here, is subtle but effective. The cameras linger on Karen's face every time her lack of employment is mentioned, capturing that specific look of, "I have a degree, therefore I shouldn't have to explain myself." They are both victims of their own inability to walk away, but Karen is the one who tries to weaponize the legal system to validate her lifestyle of rather not. The drama isn't just about the money. It's about the fundamental clash between someone who views life as a series of obligations, Donald, and someone who views life as a series of entitlements, Karen. In the end, the chemistry is less like a romance and more like a chemical fire, uncontrollable, damaging to everyone nearby, and leaving nothing but ash and a very confused judge behind. We are watching a breakdown of the American dream. The job doesn't lead to the house, and the house doesn't lead to a home, all because the people involved are too busy arguing over who owes $54 to a pawn shop in March. It is a spectacle of the highest order, a tragicomedy where the punchline is always, "I'd rather work at a gas station." When we pull back the curtain on the production of this masterpiece, we have to talk about the invisible hand of the director that turns a mundane civil dispute into a high-stakes psychological thriller for the suburban masses. The editing in this episode is nothing short of predatory in the most delightful way possible. Take, for instance, the great accounting reveal. The way the camera lingers on Karen's face for 3 beats too long after the judge suggests H&R Block is a stroke of editorial genius. It's a silence designed to let the viewer's own judgment fill the void, punctuated only by the distant, muffled sound of a gas station pump in our collective imagination. The pacing of the show is a masterclass in the reveal and retreat technique, where we are given a nugget of logic, like Donald's 12-hour workdays, only to have it immediately detonated by Karen's "I'd rather not" manifesto. The sound department deserves a raise for the way they utilize those sharp, percussive transitions between segments, creating a sense of urgency for a case that it's as if the editors are saying, "Yes, this is trivial, but isn't it fascinating how trivial it is?" Every time Karen tries to pivot to her victim narrative, the camera cuts to Donald's weary, 1,000-yard stare, effectively casting him as the audience surrogate who is just as tired of the excuses as we are. There's a specific reality TV sheen over the whole thing. The lighting is intentionally harsh, casting long, unflattering shadows that make every lie look just a little bit darker and every debt look just a little bit more desperate. Is this scripted? Perhaps not in the traditional sense, but the casting of these two is perfect. You couldn't write a more polar opposite pair. The man who digs holes for a living and the woman who refuses to balance books despite having the degree to do it. The drama is manufactured through the selective presentation of facts. We don't get a full financial breakdown until the very end. keeping the tension high as we wonder how Karen has been surviving for a year without a steady job. The director knows exactly when to lean into the judge's sarcasm, using her as the voice of reason to bridge the gap between the chaotic world of the litigants and the comfortable living rooms of the viewers. Even the inclusion of the child support mention early on feels like a calculated move when it becomes clear that the real conflict is Karen's relationship with her own potential. The pawn shop evidence reveal in the third act is timed with the precision of a Broadway climax, ensuring that the audience leaves with a sense of, "I can't believe they went there." It's a beautifully orchestrated mess, where every slow-motion reaction shot is a quiet judgment and every cutaway to a bailiff's stoic face is a reminder that in this courtroom, the only thing being truly accounted for is the entertainment value. The Bon Te Dao Dien here isn't trying to find the truth. It's trying to find the most click-worthy version of the tragedy, and in the case of the woman who would rather work at a gas station than a tax office, they struck absolute gold. The editing doesn't just show us the fight. It creates a narrative where the lack of common sense is the villain and the judge's frustration is the hero we all need. By the time the final gavel hits, the production has successfully transformed a sad story of domestic failure into a legendary tale of what not to do with your life, proving that in the world of television, a well-timed cut to a confused face is worth more than 1,000 receipts. It is the art of making the ordinary look extraordinary through the lens of pure, unadulterated judgment, and we are all complicit in the viewing. Stepping back from the wreckage of this about the human condition, or at least the condition of people who find themselves on national television arguing over a $54 pawn ticket, there is a profound, almost poetic lesson in the tragedy of Karen's accounting degree. In today's world, we talk a lot about quiet quitting and gatekeeping our peace, but Karen is the pioneer of a much more chaotic trend: vocal underachieving. She possesses the very tools, the degree, the knowledge, the certification, to balance her life, yet she chooses the path of least resistance at a gas station simply because she would rather not. It is the ultimate anti-manifestation. While today's influencers preach about leveling up and high-value lifestyles, Karen is out here living the low-stakes dream on someone else's dime. It's a fascinating, albeit frustrating, look at how education doesn't always equate to agency. If we look at this through a modern lens, Karen has massive main character energy, but she's starring in a tragedy where the protagonist refuses to leave the opening scene. Then there's the slow learner anthem provided by Donald. We've all been there, whether it's a job we hate, a toxic friendship, or a partner who throws cell phones and then expects us to pay for their stereo. Donald is the poster child for weaponized infatuation by throwing his road department salary at it until it stops hurting. The lesson here is that you can't pay someone's way into being a functional adult. You can't loan someone a sense of responsibility. In the age of TikTok red flag lists, this entire relationship is just a crimson parade. The real VO lesson here is that sometimes the degree you worked for isn't nearly as important as the dignity you're willing to keep. We see a lot of discourse lately about the cost of living, but rarely do we discuss the cost of not trying. Karen's refusal to work at H&R Block isn't just a career choice. It's a refusal to participate in the social contract of mutual effort. She wants the benefits of a shared household without the shared burden. This episode serves as a stark reminder that accounting isn't just about numbers. It's about the stories we tell ourselves to justify our failures. When she says the math doesn't balance out, she's not just talking about the rent. She's talking about her entire approach to reality. The ultimate takeaway? If you're going to pawn your car stereo to make a car payment, maybe don't sue the guy who helped you get it back. It's bad for the brand, bad for the credit score, and terrible for the soul. In a world obsessed with hustle culture, Karen is the chaotic neutral counterweight, reminding us that you don't. And for the rest of us slow learners out there, let Donald be your cautionary tale. If the person you're with values a $54 stereo more than your 12-hour shifts, it's time to close the book and find a new story to write. It's messy, it's petty, and it's the most authentic look at the unbalanced life we've seen in years.